Okay guys, what we're going to look at now is what happens when we square a square root. Okay, so to begin with, let's say that we have the square root of 4 and then we're going to square it. All right, we are going to look at what we actually do here. Okay, so if you take the square root of 4, because square root of 4 is between the brackets, isn't it? So that always comes first. The square root of 4 we know is 2. Okay, so now we have 2 squared, and 2 squared is 4. Okay, now that 4 matches the 4 that you originally had under the brackets, under the square root, sorry. Let's try this again. Let's look at the square root of 36, and we're going to square it. Okay, so that is the same as, firstly, the square root of 36 is 6, so we have 6 squared. 6 squared is 36, and surprisingly enough, that 36 matches that number we started with. Okay, so basically if we have the square root of a number and we square it, the answer is just whatever that number was. Okay, you don't need to go through all the steps, we can just write down the answer. That's really the main part of this lesson. Okay, now sometimes you're going to have different situations. You might have something like the square root of 8 times 2 squared. Okay, now in this situation you need to remember that we're not just squaring the square root of 8, we're actually also squaring the 2. Okay, so that becomes 2 squared times the square root of 8 squared. Okay, so 2 squared we know is 4, so it becomes 4 times 8, which is 32. All right, so when you square a square root that has a coefficient, okay, this is the same as the coefficients for your algebra. If you have a coefficient for the square root, you need to remember to also square that. Okay, the other thing you might find is that sometimes the coefficient is outside the brackets. Okay, so if instead we had 2 times the square root of 8 squared, okay, you need to think about your order of operations here. All right, now between the brackets is the square root of 8. All right, we can't do anything with that. Okay, that's brackets. I is for indices. So if we square that square root of 8, we end up with 8. So in this case, we have 2 times 8, which is 16. So you can see there's a very important difference as to whether the coefficient from the square root is outside or inside the brackets. In the second case, it's not actually a coefficient of the square root. All right. This is really the main thing. Beyond here, you're just working with adding and subtracting. Okay, so sometimes you're going to have something like 3 times the square root of 4 squared plus 2 times the square root of 6. And we'll just square the square root here. Okay, so if we give you something like this, then you need to think about what we're going to do and work it all out. So here we have 3 squared times the square root of 4 squared is 4. Okay, plus the 2 is not inside the brackets here, so we're just going to write 2 times the square root of 6 squared we know is 6. All right, so we get 9 times 4 plus 2 times 6. Okay, 9 times 4 is 36, plus 2 times 6 is 18. No, it's 12. Okay, so we get here an answer of 48. All right, so these are the kind of steps we want you to go through, and I do want you to write out each line. Do not skip steps. Do not think that you know better and that you can write down whatever you like, because we teach you everything for a reason. This has follow-ons for later, so please make sure you are writing out all your steps. You're not being lazy and skipping things. Otherwise, it's not really much use to me, okay? I want to see that you've shown all your steps and shown what you are doing. That is a big part of maths. Okay, good luck.